أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. Oh Allah, help us learn what is beneficial to us and help us benefit from what you have enabled us to learn and increase us in knowledge. Ameen. Allahumma ameen. We are going to again go real quick over where we are now. We are working in item number 3. So we finished understanding ourselves and the barriers that can make us establish secure attachment and positive relationship with our kids. Today, actually, we're going to bring this back again when we talk about our items today. We also finished about brain science and children temperament traits and needs. And we are working in step number 3, which are the elements, alhamdulillah, the 6 S's. We already finished the first 2. And today, inshallah, we're going to be talking about the next 2. So we're going to be talking about their need for soothing and then their need for to feel successful. And with that, a quick reminder again that don't forget the dua. Don't forget, yes, we're learning. Yes, we're going to read books. Yes, we're going to learn and listen to many, many lectures and everything. But most importantly, the dua that put barakah in our effort. And inshallah, Allah grant us all success and falah in raising our kids and all our affairs, Ya Rabb. So secure attachment again, quickly, is this emotional bond that we have with our kids, or that we should establish with our kids, right? Which is being physically, mentally, and emotionally present in their life in a good way. And we said that the main items or the key elements of having this relationship, having this secure attachment, and building a positive relationship with our kids is to have this consistent and sensitive attunement and responsiveness, right? So it's 2 parts again. And if we're able to fully understand what this means, then khalas, we're ready to go. So attunement, and when we are consistently and sensitively attuned, this means that we're able to always recognize and empathize with our kids. When I say recognize, I mean we're able to perceive and understand how they feel, what they need, how they think, their own perspective about things, not our own, okay? Yes, we're going to bring this into discussion, but the first step is I want to understand my kid, right? I want to see them internally, their internal environment, how they're thinking, what they want, what is the problem, where are they stuck, what is it that they're not getting, what kind of skill I need to work more on. By attuning to their internal environment and understanding them, I will be able to respond to them or be responsive appropriately, right? If I'm not able to establish this connection and this attunement, then I will probably act based on what I think is right, not taking in consideration their feelings, their thoughts, their desires, their needs, which basically I'm going to end up in the wrong place, most probably. Okay. So the first part is to attune, to accurately recognize and empathize with their emotional state. Oh, I understand. Doesn't mean in any way, shape, or form that I agree with it or that it's 100% right. We're not talking about right and wrong now. We're just talking about the fact that you understand where they are coming from. Okay. And based on that, you are going to be responsive. And responsiveness, again, is to what's action am I going to take? Now I understand exactly what's going on with my child. Okay. Now I need to respond appropriately. Like how? Through validation. Okay. And validation here, I'm validating feelings, not actions. I'm validating feelings. So through validation and taking steps or acting, we call that acting effectively. And to act effectively, this needs to be, as we said before, it has to be timely, appropriately, and positively. If I'm able to get the hang of these two items, oh, I understand, I know what's going on, and I thought about it, and I will act responsively to fulfill their needs, and at the same time, to see how to give them what they really want in a way that is healthy for them. Okay? Doesn't mean, again, that I approve of a wrong behavior, doesn't mean that I even like agree with the feeling, but feelings are not something that we need to agree with, right? Feelings are feelings. So we validate them, but then we act appropriately. Okay. So if we're able to do that, then great, we got it. To make it more practical, or to put it into strategies and to put it into tips and steps and 1, 2, 3, a lot of psychologists and parenting experts try to put it in a more like in steps, or what is it if I do, it will mean that I'm attuned and I'm responsive. So based on that, we try to put it together in saying, like if we're able to give them these 6 S's, which are the basic social emotional needs, then I'm kind of like, I will be able to provide the secure attachment. I will be able to provide a positive, long-lasting relationship with my kids that will support them, like not only in childhood, but throughout their life. So these 6 S's happen to be the basic social emotional needs. And then they are what is required to raise kids who are mentally healthy by providing this secure attachment. Again, these 6 S's, there are a lot of overlap. And today we're going to see one or some between soothed and actually refer back to seen. Seen and soothed are very closely related, just like successful and significant are also closely related. So we will see a lot of overlap. But again, for the sake of clarification, we want to make some distinctions so that it's easier for people to implement. Now, we spoke about attunement. So before I even jump into talking about our third S, which is soothed, I want to give an example of how attunement and responsiveness look like. So let's take any situation. Let's say my child is, let me add something that will clarify this. First year of life, when our kids are infants, like babies, and then growing like throughout the first year, all what we do, or all what I want to believe that we do, is mostly very attuned and very responsive. For example, when our kids cry, we hear the cry and we know that they are distressed because we figure it out. We're able to attune and understand, oh, my baby, oh, he's hungry, or she's fussy, maybe she's warm, or maybe, of course, there are guesses, but usually it's a good guess, right? And usually most of the time it works because we're attuned. The baby is not talking, right? So we have to guess, and we have to attune, and we have to understand. So moms and dads, after a while, they know if the baby is crying because they're hungry, or they're wet, or they have like a colic, or because they're just fussy and anxious, or they want to be carried and pampered, right? So we figure this out. That is attunement. I understand their internal environment. I know what they want. I know their need. Okay. And then what do? We respond. We go, right? We carry them. We give them whatever, if it's food or, change diapers or whatever it is. So we're always attuned to their needs appropriately, timely, effectively, positively. We don't yell at them because they wet their diaper. We don't fuss because they're hungry. We understand that these are needs and we're going to give it to them. Not that I'm saying we're going to give all the kids later on what they want. And last time we talked about the difference between needs and wants, right? Giving them tangible things, or giving them more screen time, or giving them, 10 10 different games is not what I'm talking about. Okay? I'm talking about social emotional needs. If they want love, they get love. If they want connection, they get connection. If they want basically the 6 S's, they want to feel safe, they should feel safe all the time. And this has nothing to do with giving them tangible stuff. Okay, like Dr. Gabor Mate said, like actually we spoil kids when we deprive them from their needs. Okay, or when we give them too much of something that they do not need. That's when we spoil them. But when we give them their needs, that's not spoiling kids. Okay. So we do that like great. Even the rest of the S's. So yes, safe, seen, and soothed are the main S's that creates the secure attachment. But also the to create that positive relationship, and part of the responsiveness is to encourage, right, to make them feel successful and significant and give them sense of direction, which also we do greatly in the first year of life. So when our kids start like moving in bed, yeah, we make a party. Oh, she started moving, she started raising her head. And then when they take their first step, yeah, we celebrate that they took their first step, and we make them feel successful, and we make a big deal, and they feel happy because they are successful, they are capable, they feel competent, right? And then we're always guiding them, we're always telling them, we're always talking to them, what is this and what is that, and who is that person? That's Baba, that's Theta, that that's the sun, that's your shirt, and so on and so forth. So we're giving like the sense of direction. What is it that's happening around you? So we usually do these 6 like in a really great way in the first year of life. And the reason why I'm bringing this is just to give you a taste of what is it, attunement and responsiveness and the 6 S's, just to let you know that you already do that in the first year of life, maybe a year and a half sometimes. Of course, no, I'm not saying that we totally stop. We still give them that, but usually researchers found that like after a year and a half, we start focusing more on behaviors and punishments and the no's and the rules, more than we focus on the feelings and the needs. And no one is saying don't do that, because that's actually S number 6. We need to set limits and boundaries and teach them skills and let them know what is right and what's wrong and everything. That's totally right. That's totally great. But the problem is we totally focus on this, thinking that they don't need the other 5 S's for some reason. Or maybe we assume they're going to get it from somewhere else. I don't know. But the thing is, we focus on the do's and don'ts more. And the problem with that is sometimes we don't even do it correctly. So yes, we have to focus on right and wrong and ethics and boundaries, because kids do not have those. Their brain does not have boundaries and they don't understand that. So we have to teach them. But the problem is sometimes, rather than teaching, remember, responsive effectively and positively and timely, what we do is we respond harshly. So we start yelling and screaming and nagging and frowning and, all those tactics that we talked about, which definitely are going to affect their sense of security, right? The first safety, first S. Actually, we affect the rest of the S's as well. So today we're going to navigate S number 3, which is soothed, okay? So to understand soothing, or why kids need soothing, or when do they need soothing, let me share a story with you. So imagine if you bought went online and maybe bought this gift for your best friend. Her wedding is tonight. The gift is supposed to come today, and it did come. But when you opened it, you found that this is the wrong thing. It's not the one that you ordered. It's different from what you ordered. Now you are like fuming with anger. You're so upset. You were not ready for such a bad surprise. You're thinking it will come, everything's going to be great, you're going to take it and go. And now you're upset. You went to your husband, you're so upset and angry and frustrated. So you started yelling, about how those people are irresponsible, inconsiderate, unprofessional, and that you're gonna, I'm gonna go and they're so dumb. I'm gonna go and just, I'm gonna go off on them. I'm gonna call them. I'm gonna ruin them. And you're so upset, okay, because of what happened. Now imagine if your husband or your spouse, um, whether it's the man or the woman that went into a situation like that and they're upset or frustrated or basically have intense emotions. Imagine those responses. Imagine if you go, so let's assume like it's the wife and she did order for the gift, and she went to the husband and she did that, like started venting her anger of what this company did. So now I'm going to tell you some responses that we get sometimes. And I want you to, maybe you can write down in the chat box if you want, to tell me how you feel about each one of these, okay? Just to get the point more clear. So you went to your husband and said, those people are so and so and so. I'm going to call them. I'm going to ruin them. I'm going to go off on them. Like, how did they do that to me? I'm so embarrassed. I'm going to the wedding and I don't have the gift. And I promised my friend. And okay, you're in this status. And then this is what he said. Oh, there's no reason to be upset. It's foolish to feel this way. You're probably just, exaggerating everything and blowing this thing out of proportion. And it's not that bad. It's not that bad. Okay. You can smile. Please smile. You have a very nice smile. So that's response number one. Okay. So write down in the chat, how do you feel about that? While I'm going to give you more responses. Another spouse might respond differently. It's like, oh, why are you making a big deal out of this? This is all your mistake. And honestly, you deserve it. Why did you even order from these people? And then why are you yelling at me? Just go take care of your business. Just go away. How do you feel? Right? So write down your responses to that. How you feel, not responses. I don't want how you will answer. I don't want any fights, but I want to know, how do you feel based on these responses, okay? You might have another spouse or husband who would say, oh, poor thing, I'm so sorry, that's terrible, I'm so sorry for you, I know it's very hard, but it's okay, I guess. Okay. Or you get this response, which is basically, look, life is not like that. Things don't always go and turn out the way you want. You have to learn that things are, world is not perfect. Inshallah, we're going to get your thing in Jannah. It's okay. That's life. You have to learn it. Okay. Another response can be something like, you know what I think you should do? I think you need to call them and try to work something out with them. Like maybe, they can pay you some money or give you a gift card, and you can come out like with a gift card from this, or some kind of discount or coupon or something. Another response can be questioning, like a lot of questions, like, why did you wait to do the last minute to order? How many times have I told you not to wait till the last minute? Okay. And what exactly did you order? How much was it? And can you buy something else? Do you think you can go and get it now? I'm not sure why you did place that order after all. That's another response. Someone else might be responding something along the lines of, you know, it's all your mistake. And I don't think people are busy, companies are busy, they do mistakes. It's okay. That's things happen. And probably they have bazillion customers. So it's totally normal to mess up sometimes, doesn't make them a bad company and doesn't give you the right to go off on them. So anyways, so all these are responses. How do you feel about them? Very bad. I'm pretty sure that none of these responses would be what you want to hear at this point. I'm pretty sure. Okay. So basically, do you think that these responses of that spouse are attuned to your internal environment? Do these responses kind of at least take your feelings in consideration? They're not, right? This person is totally, all these responses, I said like 5, 6 different responses, all of them are like not attuned with the person's internal environment, not validating anyone's feelings, not able to understand that that person is in a state of distress, in a state of dysregulation, right? And it's not the right way to whether judge or dismiss or disapprove or like play along or accuse or question, or all of these are tactics that are totally like not sensitive to the person's feelings at that point of time. So what do we need? We need someone who can just validate our feeling, and then they will either tell us, help us problem solve and see what we can do. That's definitely a good thing. That part is definitely a good thing. But the problem is it has to be done after they attune to the internal environment and connect with the person and validate their feelings. Okay. And then they do it the right way. Of course, accusations or dismissing or disapproving or questioning or blaming or shaming are not definitely the right way of dealing with the situation. Okay. So we connect first and then we problem solve. Correct? So the reason why I gave you this example is because most of us as parents, that's the way we usually interact with our kids. When even for simple things like when they say they don't want to wear a jacket, or they're bored of the homework, or they don't like math, or they hate chores and they're upset that they have to do it, or and these are sometimes they're not in distress, it's just regular feelings, right? Or they're not high intensity feelings. But especially when we are in distress, we go into a state of like dysregulation. Okay. And when we are in a state of dysregulation, what we want is actually like someone to connect with our feeling, with our internal environment, and validate that. And if we, even as adults with like adult brains that are already mature and that already have the skills, need that sometimes. So what about kids who do not have that, who has like a brain, like a rational brain that's still under construction, who cannot control their emotions, who cannot regulate themselves? They definitely need someone to connect with them and to regulate them or help regulate them, okay? Because they don't have this ability, which will drive us to talk about soothing. So what is soothing? We say co-soothing or co-regulation, or the item is soothed. The kids need to be soothed, right? So soothing is basically the calming experience, is to reduce stress and make you relax. So self-soothe is basically the ability of the person to calm himself or herself down and regulate emotions and manage stress. So our ability to do those things is called like self-soothing. So when I'm mad, I know like I will go sit in my room, just say Quran or take a deep breath or calm myself down. That is self-soothing. Okay. So this involves that I have internal skills. I already have skills through which I can use to calm myself when I'm in distress, or when I'm dysregulated, or when my emotions are so intense that they shut down the rational brain. Okay. So we all need that sometimes, even as adults. We're not always calm, we're not always collected, and let's just agree that we're not always able to calm ourselves down right at the beginning every single time we're distressed. Sometimes we can, sometimes we just, like this example that I just gave, is that person was not able to calm herself right away. She went asking for someone to co-soothe, but she got all these responses that actually probably made her more angry, right? They kind of added fuel to the fire. So that is when it comes to adults. But what about children? Can kids self-soothe? That is an important question. Can they? So to answer this question, let's talk about this. Scientifically, infants are not neurologically or developmentally capable of calming or soothing themselves on their own. Okay? Yes, they can have very primitive, things to do, like, thumb sucking or something like that, or pacifier, but these are very primitive. This is just, very simple things, but they do not have an intrinsic, and these are extrinsic, right? They do not have internal ability to calm themselves. They do not have the brain to think, oh, this happened, what can I do? Oh, let me go and sit and calm myself down, or think about it, or they don't have that. So kids need help. So what happened to kids when something distressing happened, or when they have something that is causing whether we call it intense emotions that take them into distress, what happens is, let's look at our picture. When something distressful happens, it goes to the emotional brain. And the emotional brain, when it feels severe distress, which only the kids feel, because you cannot know what will distress a baby, or what will distress an infant, or what will distress a toddler. Okay, not getting chocolate when they want can be distressful, right? Or forcing them to wear a jacket and they don't want can be distressful, and they can just go into a temper tantrum for that. So the distress is decided by their brain, not our judgment. Okay. And I'm not talking about handling it. I'm talking about the fact that you have to understand it. You have to know where they're coming from. They cannot self-soothe. They cannot talk to their brain and say, it's not a big deal, or I can do that. They don't have this. So whenever something stressful happened to them and they're emotional about it, they go into their brain. Remember, rational brain is under construction. And they don't have the skills first to deal with situation, plus they do not have the self-regulation skill either, so they cannot figure out the solution, and they cannot calm themselves, so it cannot get any worse. So what do they need? What happens is they go into a fight, flight, freeze response. Emotional brain takes over, stress response, release of chemicals, and we go into a fight, flight, freeze, which shows as what we call misbehavior, whether the kid is gonna scream or throw a tantrum or get shut down and not talk, or just won't engage or leave the place. All of these are reactions that is going to happen because the kids are in a fight flight response. So what they need is just someone to help out. Remember that we need to remember that self-soothing or self-regulation is a process that matures slowly over time, just like any skill. Remember, problem-solving skill. Remember, we gave an example with language development. I want you always to remember that, because it's very clear. You can compare anything to language development. First you you babble and then try to, pronounce things, and you articulate, and you have to have like a lot of vocabulary bank, and then you start putting things together and make sense of what's people are telling you, and then thinking about the answer, and then start saying a word, and then 2 words, and then 3 words, and then a whole sentence, and then complicated sentences, and so on. So it takes like years, correct? Same, any skill start with little things, and then it build up over time. And we said for any skill to develop and be refined, it needs 2 factors: the element of time for brain maturation, and the element of teaching, someone to teach the kid or that person that skill. Okay, so when it comes to the process of self-regulation, how does it evolve? Like, how does it look like? So let me tell you. The first 3 years of life, roughly, these are rough estimates. Of course, there is a range and there is individual variation, but I'm giving you rough estimates. From 0 to 3, kids are completely dependent on caregivers and adults for emotion regulation. The emotion regulation, the basics are in progress, but they do not have emotion regulation up until 3rd year of life. So up until 3, consider that you're the main regulator for your kid. Okay? 4 to 6, again, these are rough estimates, okay? It's a range. 4 to 6, then they will be heavily dependent on the adult. Yes, they will start having tactics, simple, basic self-regulation skills, especially when emotions are not that high. You will see they started managing certain things, but not everything, okay? Then 7 to 10, they become more regulated, more dependent, but still need guidance and help and support from adults, from caregivers, from teachers. And I wish teachers at schools know that, is that because when kids explode sometime and the teacher considers this as misbehavior, they are in a fight flight. And if they're young, they don't have the ability to control that the whole time. So she needs to connect, she needs to validate, she needs to attune to their internal environment, to help even abort the attack, to help calm the emotional brain so the kids will not misbehave. But what we do sometimes is sometimes we make it worse. Anyways, then as they grow, they start developing that skill because they're growing up. Plus, they started learning some skills from the outside, hopefully from the adult caregivers. So as they grow and mature, this is their dependence on self-soothing will increase, but they will still need the guidance or support sometimes. So even at adolescence, although they are increasingly independent and they are able to regulate themselves, yet there will be times and occasions when they still need the adult to calm them down, especially when, certain age, when hormones start gushing, mood starts swinging, they need our regulation as well, right? But talk about adulthood. We all need sometimes someone to comfort us. We all need sometimes someone to be there and listen to us and validate us. We all need that. So this will happen occasionally but in extreme situations usually, but that happens in adulthood. Until then, this is a slowly progressing process. We need to understand that. So with that being said, now we know that our kids need our help. That's why soothe is one of the basic social emotional needs. They need it. It's not like you're doing them a favor. That's a need. They can't do it. They cannot. Okay. So how do we help our kids regulate? Like, what is it that we can do to help them regulate? 3 things. Of course, time, but That's not something that we are deciding on, right? But to teach them, the second element is to teach kids how, as adults, as caregivers, as parents, as teachers, can we help kids regulate? Number one, by practicing co-regulation. And I will tell you how. So first is to practice co-regulation with the kids as they're young and growing up. So this, through co-regulation, the brain is taught how to self-regulate later on. Number two is through building a self-soothing toolkit. Basically, teach the kid how to self-soothe when they are upset or angry, or when they have like intense emotions, when they are in a state of distress. Okay. And number three is through modeling, showing them, because guess what? Kids learn. If you're teaching, kids learn. So yes, I can directly teach them, when you're angry, you can do this or this or this, and we can create a space and this and that. Okay, great. But if they see you yelling all the time, and they see you dysregulated when they make a mistake, or when your spouse do something that you don't like, or when your order comes wrong, but all the time, of course, all of us are gonna dysregulate, yeah, every now and then. We're humans. Okay, I'm not talking about occasionally. I'm talking about some people, dysregulation is their name. They're always kind of, they don't know how to control their anger, they don't know how to control their frustration, they don't know how to self-soothe, right? So if this is what the kids see, so then this is what they will learn. That's, rather than learning a skill to self-soothe, they will learn a skill to, it's not a skill, a reaction to explode, right? But they will think it's right. And one of the amazing things that parents always tell me, subhanallah, a lot of parents, not all parents again, always tell me is like, my kids are always yelling, and they're loud, and their attitude, they have an attitude, and they, yell at their siblings and this and that. And then when we start discussing the family dynamics, the parents said like, yeah, I'm always, I have this temper, I'm always yelling, I cannot control myself when something happened. And it's like, okay, that's modeling. That's how they socially learn. This is called social learning, right? That if the people around me are basically, they're showing me that when they're distressed or when they have a problem, what they do is that they yell and scream or hit or put people down or shame or do any of that, then I will automatically learn that this is the way to go about it. So we need to make sure that we're modeling like self-regulation and calmness, right? So whenever you feel like it's too much, you're nervous or you're angry, or you have to develop this toolkit as well. It's like, I'm gonna stop talking, I'm gonna take a break, I'm gonna take a deep breath, whatever tactic that works for you. I'm gonna leave the place. These are tactics to just get yourself out of the place, and then you can sit and do something that calms you down. Okay. So and again, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that never mess up, never make a mistake. Like, no one, we're humans, we're imperfect, so we will always sometimes lose it. But if we're doing this occasionally, in extreme situations, every now and then we do it, okay, fine. But if we're doing it every day, then no, it's not fine, because that's what we're teaching kids, and then we complain. Also, if we do it, we have to go back and tell the kids that that was not the right response. So if our kids, like, let's say, saw us exploding at someone or doing something like, oh yes, it's like, it doesn't happen every day, it happens like once in a while. Still, if it's wrong, you have to let them know it's wrong. You go and say, this was not the best response, and I apologize to that person that I yelled at. This was not, it's just I lost it. And and talk about the brain parts and how sometimes the amygdala kind of hijack the brain. So stuff like that. So not because you did it to let it slide as if it's normal. Because some parents also, they think if we apologize or if we do something and then we tell the kids that like we did something wrong, the kids might, this might make us look like we're not competent, or we're not, like we don't know what we're doing, and then they will lose confidence on like on for yani confidence in us. That's not true. That's not true, because actually it's the opposite. You're telling them, I made a mistake, I'm apologizing, or I apologize. People sometimes can make mistakes, but when we do, we have to fix it. We have to make amends. We have to fix our mistake. Whatever it takes, we need to fix it. Own it and fix it. This way, actually, you're telling your kid that you're strong and you're conscious and you realize your mistakes and you correct them, and that's what they will learn from you. Okay? So these are the 3 tactics. So we're done with modeling. So modeling, you got modeling. Let's talk about the other 2 items: how to co-regulate with the kids, and then how to build the kids' self-soothing kit, or teach them strategies and coping mechanisms over time, so that they already have their own tools and they know how they can calm themselves down when something happens. Okay? So for this is what happens when kids are distressed. Now we know that we have to help them out. So how does the process go? First, there will be a situation which will cause intense emotions. And with intense emotion, the kid will go into a state of distress, or we call it dysregulation. Dysregulation means dysregulation between the emotional brain and the rational brain. Usually they are integrated or regulated together. So when intense emotion takes place, you know, the flipped lid that we talked about, that Dr. Daniel Siegel always use, then our lids are going to flip and we are going to be in a state of dysregulation or disintegration. When this happens, usually which part of the brain will take over? It's the emotional brain, right? So this happens with kids all the time because they don't even have the ability to regulate. It's not there. So it's going to be formed, but with our help. So once this happens, dysregulation, parent or caregiver or teacher, adults in general, but of course we're talking about secure attachment and parenting, so I will be talking about parents, but you're an adult anywhere, help kids regulate. Okay, so we do co-regulation, then the child will become calm and regulated, and this way he or she will develop the skill of regulation. So the development of skill of regulation is wiring of the brain, and they found that kids who have someone to co-regulate with, who validate the feeling and calm them down, and you know, and listen to them and engage in the way I'm going to talk about in the steps I'm going to give you, when adults or caregivers do that, their brain will automatically be wired for regulation, and they will develop self-regulation as they grow up. Okay, so over time the child will acquire this self-regulation or self-soothing ability. So yes, you heard right, that the road to self-regulation starts with co-regulation. Because I know a lot of people say, oh no, let them be with their pain, let them be alone, let them deal with it like on their own, because that's how they develop regulation. They will teach themselves how to regulate. That is developmentally untrue, neurologically untrue, according to the vast, you know, we have ample research saying that. Is that's not how it develops. Actually, this is how they develop dysregulation, continuous dysregulation. Okay, so co-regulation is the way to self-regulation. Okay, next. So how does this happen? Again, what happens is kids are gonna, something will happen. Let's say kids want candy before dinner. Okay, and usually this is your rule. We're not getting candy before dinner. We get a piece of candy after dinner. Let's say that. But today, you're 2 years old or 3 years old, okay? Just want the candy. Maybe saw a piece of candy on the, you know, somewhere, and they just want it. And then you said nicely, not now, Habibi, we're going to take it after dinner. To you, this is something trivial. But to that kid, that day, that age, this can start a fight, flight, freeze response. This can be a stressful or distressful situation. So what happened is when you say that, and especially if we say it in a harsh way, I hope not, but even sometimes, it's not about the way we said it sometimes. Of course, if we say it in a harsh way, it will make it worse, for sure. But sometimes you didn't even say anything. There is just on there, they get dysregulated on their own. Remember, 0 to 3, literally, regulation is not there. Okay, so what happens is they go into like emotional brain, intense emotions sent to the rational brain. Rational brain is saying, I have no emotional control at this point. I'm just under construction. Plus, those skills are not even gonna start building until like 3-ish and up. So I don't have it. Like, yes, I'm putting the building blocks, but I can't. So what happens is emotional brain takes over and the kid becomes dysregulated, go into a fight, flight, freeze response, right? And let's say through a tantrum or cry or shut down and like he's not talking to you or sure. By the way, not talking to you and totally shutting down is a fight and freeze response. So that happens. It doesn't mean that the kid is fine. You will tell the difference between being fine and like fine with that or being upset, but that's the response. Not all kids present with the fight response or the yelling or screaming or crying or throwing themselves on the ground or okay. So there are different responses. So either the fight response or the flight and freeze response, which will appear to you as, again, misbehavior, right? Down here, the fight flight response usually appears as misbehavior. So if we join the kid in co-regulation, okay, through listening and validating their feelings, okay, what we do is we calm down the emotion. So when the rational brain say, I'm so sorry, this is too intense for me, I cannot deal with it. So the lid flips, right? And then the emotional brain takes over, fight, flight response. So what you need to do what your job as a parent, your job as a teacher, your job as an adult, a co-regulator, is to bring the lid back to place. That's our job at this point. We need to calm their emotional brain and restore the lid and restore the regulation or the integration. When the emotional brain calms down, then the kid becomes regulated. Then even if they have, they can listen to explanation, they can listen to teaching, they can make a little sense at least of what you're going to be saying. But when the kid is dysregulated, don't try to rationalize, don't try to give solutions, don't like, if they are distressed, don't try to say, oh, but we agreed that this, you say, about the candy part, you say it once, oh, it's after dinner, we agreed it's after one time. If they are dysregulated, stop, don't continue explaining. They are not listening. Rational brain is already flipped. So flipped lid, they're not, they listen, make sense of things with the rational brain that's not intact anymore. Okay, so don't continue rationalizing about the situation, because the more you do that, the more emotional they get. So we're actually increasing the attack. Okay, so that is how we do it. We have to connect with the emotional brain and calm it down. Now, the next question will be, okay, how are we gonna calm it down? Calm it down through regulation, through helping them out. Okay, so co-regulation now, just to make sure, it's not about teaching kids to ignore their feelings or to just ride a storm of emotions without help. No, co-regulation is about teaching them to serve emotions, okay, and not trying to eliminate it. It's not about, it's okay, candy is not important, or Parents who give the candy, that's not right either, because I don't want anyone thinking that what I'm saying is co-regulation is to give the kid the candy bar. That's not what I say. No, we're not giving. If this is your rule, and if you give only the piece of candy after dinner, we're keeping that. Just try not to keep it on the tables and everywhere, so the kid will not be stressed all the time. Okay, so just put it in a place that's covered, or a drawer or something, and you don't want the kids seeing that all the time, and then they have to fight stress response every time. But again, doesn't mean that if they see it, okay, that you give it to them. That's not co-regulation. That's permissiveness, and we'll talk about this later. So co-regulation is just to validate, right? Is just to support and guide and calm them down, okay, and to teach them that, yeah, you're hurting, I understand. Basically, you're going to be telling them in a way that I understand that you're upset because you want the candy so much, and it means a lot to you, and I understand, I'm here for you. But that's not giving them the candy. You're just connecting with their feeling. You're just validating their feelings, okay? And just telling the kid, you're not alone in your feelings. How is this going to be beneficial? And then the next point is how to do it. So I'm going to put it in steps for you, like the technique to make it more tangible. Like, what should I do when they throw a temper on, when they're so upset? How to do it? We're going to talk about that. But let's agree first that co-regulation has to happen, okay? And that co-regulation is not an extra thing. It's needed. It develops because they don't have the ability. So it's important for the development of self-regulation. It builds the secure attachment and relationship, and that's the topic of our series, actually. And in addition to that, co-regulation helps teach the brain a lot of skills, not just not only social emotional regulation or emotional regulation. No, it teaches them social emotional intelligence. It teaches them planning and decision making. It teaches them flexibility and adaptability. So there is a lot that goes with co-regulation. So co-regulation is not just because it's just a need, but it teaches a lot of skills in addition to emotional regulation. Okay, so kids who do not get that are going to be the opposite. They will probably not be regulated. They will enter cycles and cycles of fight, flight, freeze response because there's no one to help them out. And this is not good for them. By the way, kids who spend a lot of time into the fight, flight, freeze, remember, fight, flight, freeze is a stress response, right? So it releases chemicals in the blood. That's not healthy. Okay, in addition to the fact that these kids, and that's the bad part, is that they can grow up into adults who cannot regulate. And that's why we see adults around us who cannot regulate. Okay, because maybe part of it, I'm not saying this is the only reason, can be because they didn't see how to regulate. They didn't get someone to co-regulate. Actually, maybe in their house growing up as a child, that was the way of dealing with emotions. Yelling, screaming, getting it out on people. So no skill. So they will be adults who are yelling all the time, fighting all the time, upset all the time, and they don't know how to control themselves. So, and that is one of the consequences of not helping your kid co-regulate. Now, let's go into the how to do it. Okay, let's go into how to do it. The first thing is for co-regulation to happen is to engage in what we call empathetic listening, and to make sure that we're on the same page. We want to teach our kids how to coach them about emotions. Okay, so that's why I'm saying there's a lot about co-regulation. Co-regulation is not just for today's topic. You will find me teaching co-regulation or handling stress with your kids when I talk about social emotional intelligence, developing social emotional intelligence. You will find me talking about it when I talk about empathetic listening. You will find me talking about when I'm talking about resilience, developing resilience. When I'm talking about developing problem solving skills. Okay, and so it's part of a lot of skills that we need to develop in our kids. steps. Number one. So first step, and again, that's to make it tangible, to make you write down, okay, when my kid is distressed or dysregulated, this is what I want to do. Number one, listen with empathy and attention. Now you know when your kid is distressed, okay, they are in a state of dysregulation. They are in a basically fight, flight, freeze response. Doesn't have to be crazy. It can just being too sad or too angry or too, right? They need help. But even if this is a range of emotion, doesn't have to be 100% extreme. Kids can slip into the distress for very minor stuff, like I said, okay? Like maybe for not giving them the red cup because it's not clean and they want the red cup. You know, little ones can just have it all the time. So first of all, the first step is to, I'm going to give you an example and we apply the steps. To apply the steps for, I will give an example for, let's say, 7-year-old or 8 years old. I want to give an example that we can that we can use throughout the whole thing. So let's say Sarah, your daughter came from school. She is, let's say, 8 or 9, came from school, and she's really mad or upset, mad, a mixture of sad and mad, okay? Because she wasn't invited to her friend's party, okay? And that's a very common, I usually use this example because it's a very common example, not invited to the girls' party. So she comes in and she's like frowning or upset, or so you look at her, and if you know Sarah, if you're able to attune to the internal environment, then you will know there's something wrong with Sarah. From just her facial expressions, from the way she walks, from the way she put her backpack on the floor, okay, from the way she might not come to the kitchen. If this is her habit, she might just go to her room, right? We know our kids. That's attunement. That's part of the attunement. So let's say that maybe you missed that, or you didn't, and you asked her what's going on, or maybe she will come and tell you, like, you know, Mama, I'm upset, or whatever, depends on how she expresses herself. And your first step is to listen with full attention. So we need to listen with attention and empathy, okay? Give them full attention, establish eye contact. Like if you're just in the kitchen, let's assume that you're in the kitchen cutting, making salad or something, and she came and she's telling you what happened. Try as much as possible, if you can, just put the salad away for just few seconds or few minutes. We don't know what's gonna uncover, right? But just if you feel that there are emotions involved and they're strong emotions, then try to keep things on the side and give her your full attention. Listen to her story, because when you do that, she feels important. She feels that you care. She feels like someone is listening, okay? Versus if you're cutting and tell me what happened. That means what? Like you're sending a message, although you don't mean it for sure, but you're sending a message that you don't care in a way, okay? And that's not true. You do care, but you want to get dinner ready. That's why I'm saying, if you can just put it on the side for a few seconds, just to see how things will unfold, okay? Then when she's telling you the story, now she's saying the story. Oh, my friend didn't invite me. You know, my friend Layla didn't invite me to her party. You need to have an attitude of compassion. That's what we say. An attitude of compassion or empathy. That's the attunement that I'm talking about. That's why I'm saying, if you're able to get the attunement and responsiveness, you don't need any of that. You would just get it, okay? But to make it more tangible, so you can understand what is attunement, okay, we're trying to put it into practical steps. So like if she's frowning, don't be smiling, you know? Don't pretend like, okay, She's telling you while she's crying, maybe, that Layla didn't invite her, and here you are telling her to get you like a cucumber from the fridge. Do you think this is attunement? I know to you, so what? What if she's not invited to a party? But that is not attunement. That's your, now you are judging based on your age, your brain, your archive. That's not attunement. Attunement is to engage with her emotional status. So this party with her friend, to her, is the world. It's the one of the most important things. So treat it as such, whether you agree or not, but that is her status, right? So give her your attention, give her your full attention. So so just look at her, and if she is crying, you can just show some facial expressions or expressions of empathy. Be sad, like facial expressions of empathy. Okay. That's why dismissive parents, what they do, they're just it's like, yeah, it's okay, it's not a big deal, and that's not attunement. Even if you want to teach her at the end of the day that that's okay, but that is not the time or the place to do this. There's always, after connecting and after validating, we will have time to teach, but in a different way, not that way. So so the attitude of compassion and empathy. Remember, I want to say that, you know, communication in general, according like to scientific research, communication is not just about words. What are you going to say? Actually, it's about way about more nonverbal communication than verbal communication. So an estimate said that the actual words that we convey in our speech represent only 7 to 10% of the message. What we say, the words that we say. The other 90% of the message that the other person gets from us is not based on what we say. It's based on our tone of voice and our body language. Tone of voice represents about roughly 30 to 40, let's say 10, 40, and 50. So 10 is for the words, 40 is for the tone of voice. That includes the pitch, the volume, the, you know, the tone itself. It's empathetic or it's aggressive or it's dismissive, right? That's the tone of voice. And then the body language, how you act, your facial expressions, your eye contact, you're touching the kid or not, you're getting to their level, you know, your closeness to the kid. All of that counts in the message that you're sending. So when Layla is crying, so I will assume that, sorry, Sarah is crying because she's not invited, and she came to you in the kitchen crying because of that, you need to leave the salad on the side, and you need to get down to her or take her and sit on the couch and tell her and look at her and show empathy. Your facial expression has to be attuned to her internal environment. Otherwise, she's not going to believe you. She's not going to feel connected to you. She's not going to feel that you really care. Okay? So be cognizant of that. So that's the first thing, is listen with full attention and empathy. Okay? Number 2, do not interrupt. When she's talking, do not, because I know sometimes when our kids are talking, we're thinking, what are we going to say? What are we going to do? What questions I'm going to ask, right? No. So step 2 is do not interrupt, because if you started interrupting at this phase while she's telling you the story, basically you're shutting down the conversation doors. Okay? So all what you can do to keep it going is to say nonverbal expressions like, you know, oh, yeah, oh, really? Oh, this happened, stuff like that. Just I see. Keep the conversation going through those, you know, words or expressions. They are not like a lot of words, but just to let her know that you're listening. When you do that, let her vent, let her say her story. So let's assume that Sarah will tell you Oh mama, yeah, she came today and said that she's having a party in the weekend and she's inviting some girls, and she invited Alia and the other Sarah and Farida, but she didn't invite me. Okay, so let her talk. You will see her facial expressions. Now you're knowing the story and you're seeing how she feels. Okay, maybe some other kid will not care, but Sarah crying, so she cares. It's important. She feels something. Okay, so that is the second step, is that you want to do that, and be careful not to judge. Be careful not to give her your opinion in this, like at this point. Okay, step 3. Now, if you, to keep the conversation going, you want to, there are certain strategies or tactics that we use. It's like what we call mirroring and paraphrasing. Basically, you're repeating what she's saying, either in your own words or in her own words. Those are mirroring and paraphrasing. So let's say, so you can say something along the lines, oh, so she said that she cannot invite you to the party. Yes, mama, she said that she cannot invite me to the party. Oh, so, and you can ask questions for clarification, not for judgment, not for advice, not at this phase. At this phase, you're trying to comfort her. You're trying to make her feel connected. So you're just getting the information about the story and you're letting her feel that I listen. I'm here for you. So she can say, yes, she said that her mom told her that she can only invite 3 people. And she invited the other 3, but didn't invite me. Oh, so you can say, oh, her mom said that she can invite only 3. This basically, you're telling her to keep going. And at the same time, you're stopping yourself from judging. Okay, because sometimes as parents, we want so much to talk. We want so much to say something. So rather than judging, just repeat that in either your own language or her language, that's fine, in a kind of confirmation tone. Oh, like, did I get it right? Basically, you're telling her. Okay. And then you can ask clarifying questions like, oh, so she can only invite 3. I see. I understand. So, ask questions like what and how more than you ask why, especially if the why has to do with your kid's behavior. Because let's assume that Sarah, when Layla didn't invite her, let's say she said, I don't want to be your friend anymore. Okay, so she's telling you that. So she said that, and I was so mad, and or I, when she told me, I asked her, are you going to invite me? She said, no, mama said that I can only invite 3 friends. So I told her, I don't care about you. I don't want to be your friend anymore. Okay, now that's not the best answer, right? Or the best response. Okay, so if you ask, why did you say that? In this emotional state, she will feel like you're accusing her. You left the story that's hurting her, and now you're talking about her behavior or her accusing her. You will definitely address that. Don't worry. I know parents are like, no, my kid said that. That's not right. Even if the other girl didn't invite her, or even if the other person did something wrong, I don't want my kid to be wrong. And absolutely right. I agree with you. But now is not the right time to address that. We are in a state of intense emotions or hard emotions, right? So, just exactly like the example that I gave you about the order, right? And the responses that the spouse started giving. And we said, okay, he can definitely give you advice. He can definitely tell you, like, ideas and everything, but now is not the right time. The right time now is to calm the emotional brain and like go back to integration and regulation. That is the goal. So the goal of these steps is to get the kid's brain to calm down. And when it calms down, this will open the pathway to the rational brain, so we can start rationalizing and thinking and saying, what can we do and how can we change things, or if the kid misbehave later on, we can talk about that. But definitely now is not the right time. Now is the time to connect. Now is the time to understand. Okay. Step 4 is to identify and label emotions. To identify and label emotions, basically you can say something like, either she sometimes kids will say it, I'm mad or I'm sad, but if they don't, what you need to do is you can either ask her like an open-ended questions like, how did this make you feel? Or you can say, oh, it seems that you're upset, or it seems, especially with younger kids, when you want to teach them how to talk about emotions and how to feel their emotions, you want to give them a name, right? So younger kids, don't do that with teens. Teens get really offended, by the way, when, especially if you're not used to talk about emotions, and all of a sudden you went today and something happened and you start telling her, oh, I see you're angry. Like, I see you're mad. Like, she will tell you, stop talking about my emotions. Okay. So do it I will tell you how to do it. But generally speaking, with younger kids, you want to teach them to talk about their emotions. You want to teach, like, you want to teach them names of emotions, and and you want them to say how they feel. That's important, right? So you can say something like, okay, it looks like you're upset, or it looks like you're mad, or it looks like you're sad. It's a guesstimate, right? You're guessing. You might not get the right feeling. That's why don't say, I know you are, because it can be a wrong guess. And then the kid will be annoyed and say, no, I don't feel this way. So don't go into this area. Just say, it sounds, or it seems, or ask simply. If it's older, like Sarah is 9. So you can tell her, oh, how did this make you feel? Right? So you pick the right style based on your dynamics. Next is to why. Yeah, let's say why it's important to mention feelings or talk about or say feelings. Because sometimes, first, when you talk about feelings, the kids will like, oh yeah, mama knows how I feel. Basically, mama can see me. Remember, seen? Mama is attuned to my internal environment. She knows me. She knows how I feel, or she cares about how I feel, and she's asking me about my feelings. This is important. Remember, one of the PCEs, or positive childhood experiences, is to one of them is to have a family that talks about emotions. Subhanallah. So this is one of the key points to developing mental health, is just to talk about emotion. Okay. Also, like Dr. Daniel Siegel says, they found, like brain science and research found, that when we name the feeling, somehow it tames it. It kind of open the pathways to the rational brain. Okay. So when we just say the name, or when they say the name, it's like, yeah, I'm mad. That kind of tones it down. Okay. So it helps regulation. And again, the only thing that I will caution you about is, if you have older kids and teens and you're starting to use that, sometimes, you can try, but if you feel they're annoyed, like, don't skip that labeling of emotion. Okay. And then just jump to the next one, and you can add the emotion to this step, which is validate their feelings. Validation of feeling is basically to recognize and accept the emotion. Emotions, that's an emotion. I mean, we're not talking about behavior. You don't agree maybe with what she told her friend, but we're not talking about that now. We're going to discuss this later, but now we want to talk about her emotion. She's upset, or she's sad, or she's mad. Okay. And that's fine. We have to validate that. We have to tell her basically something like, I can see, or I understand why this would make you, why this can be upsetting, or why this can make you feel sad. I understand that. So basically, for validation is to make the kid feel understood. Okay. To make them feel felt. Someone understands me. Someone is with me in my pain or my feelings. And this is important. I know this might sound to some people, it's like, what's that? That's spoiling kid. No, that's not spoiling kid. That is making kids feel validated and feel that they have a support, someone who support them in their feelings, and someone who can help them co-regulate, because they cannot do it yet. Inshallah, they will develop it, but not yet. They're in the process. okay? And for us to be able to understand the feeling and recognize it, remember, we actually have to understand the perspective. So basically, we need to understand the feeling and the point of a situation, right? So she feels left out, basically. In her the way she thinks about it, they're going to be having so much fun. Let her talk about it. They're going to be having so much fun. She said they're bringing toys and they're just going to eat ice cream and pizza and this, whatever it is. And she feels left out. And this is hurtful. So we have to validate the feeling. Yeah, I understand. It seems like it's going to be so much fun and you're missing out. I understand, right? So that is validating feelings. Okay. Now, response is something else. How to respond? That's being responsive. Okay. Sometimes co-regulation, that's all what you need to do for co-regulation, is to listen and empathize and validate. To listen and empathize and validate, right? To make them feel felt. That's the best way to say it. Feel felt, feel understood. Okay. But sometimes, because I give an example with maybe the kid herself misbehaved, so sometimes it's you need to respond. So in certain cases, there's nothing that you can do. So for example, let me give an example to make it easier. So if Layla didn't tell her friend anything, it's just she didn't get invited and she said okay and didn't do anything, then she didn't do anything wrong. So she can stop here. So you can just tell her something, okay, after she calms down, you say, okay, what do you want to do about it? Sometimes they will tell you, oh, nothing, it's okay. Don't be surprised. Or if your son didn't get into the soccer team and he's furious and you said that, so I understand this can be disappointing. I know you were looking forward to being with the team and playing the games, and before you jump into advising him to practice more, wait. Okay, don't. So sometimes he's just venting at this phase, at this point of time. He's just telling his emotion. He's not ready for advice. He's not ready to talk about it. Maybe he's just getting it out. So based on, you have to be attuned. Remember, see how attunement is so important. It's just, sometimes all what he wants is, someone to listen. So you can say, do you want to do anything about it? And they will say no. And actually, Freud called this the talking cure, or catharsis, which is basically sometimes just by expressing what happened to you and venting your feelings, right? You feel good. You feel calmer. Okay. Yeah, maybe you need to talk about it later. Maybe you need to figure out what to do. Okay, fine. But the intense emotion goes away, and that's co-regulation. Okay. But sometimes, maybe she wants to talk about it. She wants to solve the problem, whether at the time she calmed down. So if there's a problem to solve, you need to wait until the person calmed down. Number one. Number two, do not jump into giving advice or solving the problem for her. Just wait until she's calm, whether at the time, maybe she's going to be calm right away, or maybe she needs time. So you said, okay, what about if we eat dinner and then talk about it a little bit more? Okay. So when she's calm, you can just say, what do you want to do about it? Ask them, what do you want to do about it? Okay. Because that's how you develop skills. She's going to think, oh, Mama, do you think I should talk to her again tomorrow? Do you think I should tell her to ask her mom? She might ask you questions, and here it's okay to have this conversation. Okay. It's better to always put your advice, even if you want to give advice, in a question format, as in, what do you think about? What do you think if you say something like that? What, so offer, even when you offer your advice, don't offer it as, you go tomorrow and tell her, if you don't invite me to your party, I'm not inviting you to my party. Right? So anyways, but if there was a misbehavior, like if she said something back to her friend, like, I don't like you, or I hate you, you're not going to be my friend anymore. Okay, he or she did something wrong, and it has to be addressed, but not, again, I'm going to say, it's not the end of the world. Let the emotional brain calm first. Let the lid go back. Because when you start talking about setting limits and problem solving, you are talking to this part of the brain, which is the rational brain. So if the rational brain is already, you have a flipped lid, so who are you talking to? That's not the right time to correct. Okay, that's why we always say connection before correction. We have to connect first, okay, to the emotions and validate. And when kids are calm, then we can start problem solving. If there are limits that I need to set, I will start setting limits, but that happens after the child calms down. And sometimes this is not even at the same setting. Sometimes after they calm and everything, then later on you go and say, I want to talk to you about something, and then bring it up, your response to Layla, what do you think about it, right? And this is something that inshallah we'll learn in another course about handling misbehavior or behavior problems. But generally speaking is to go back and problem solve and set limits. Say like, yeah, do you think this is a good word? Do you think this is the right response? And set limits about what is appropriate and what is not appropriate, okay? Now, the second part is, one more thing that I want to talk about is the whole co-regulation. Usually we talk about it when kids are distressed, okay? Yani when they're having intense emotions. طيب, what about just emotions? They don't have to be intense. Remember that validating emotions should be like all the time, not only when they're distressed. When they're distressed, they need someone to co-regulate, someone to calm them down, okay? Because they are in a state of distress. They are in a state of fight, flight, freeze. But what if they're talking about emotion, but they're not up to that level? Like, for example, our everyday likes and dislikes. I don't want to wear the jacket. They don't have intense emotions at this point when they're saying that. But what do? We start to, no, it's cold, you have to wear it, and this, and then we fight for it and we make it a big deal, right? So, or when they say they hate math, and your brain takes you places like, oh, she's not going to get she's 5 years old, and you're thinking about her ACT scores when she's 18 or 17. It's like, oh, she hates math. Okay, even if you want to make her love math, definitely by yelling at her, that she's not gonna love it, okay? So yes, okay, you can be careful that there's something wrong with math. Okay, how am I going to solve this problem? How am I gonna make her like it? Or how can I make it easier or whatever? But the thing is, everyday emotions should be validated as well, right? So when they tell you, I'm not hungry now, or I want to eat later, or not, without breaking any rules, right? But you have to validate the feelings. Remember, I'm talking about feelings. I'm not talking about behaviors. So validating feelings has no expense. They have nothing to pay for. It's just all good. So validate feelings, acknowledge them, okay, on daily basis. So if the kid doesn't want to wear a jacket and it's cold, you can just say, oh, they say that it's sub-freezing outside. It's really cold, but he say, okay, no, mama, it's not cold. Okay, you can always say, okay, if you don't feel cold, it's okay. We can take the jacket with us. And when you feel cold, you will wear it. And trust me, they will wear it. Unless, let me just put this disclaimer, unless there have already been fights about the jacket, okay? And now it's in his archive. Is like, so even if you say that now, and you've been fighting about the jacket battle for the past 2 years, then even if you take the jacket, he's not going to wear it, because in his brain, he wants to win. It's a challenge now. But if since the beginning you are validating emotions, it's not a big deal. Okay, you're not, okay, let's go out. I will take it just in case. He will go out and it's sub-freezing. He will say, okay, mama, I want to wear the jacket. Okay. Or I don't want to do the chores. It's very simple. Okay, you validate the feeling. Doesn't mean that they're not doing their chores. So you can say, oh yeah, you know, just the validation. It's like, yeah, I understand. It's boring. Chores can really be boring. You know, I don't like washing the dishes either. It's so boring. I don't like it. That's validation. You're validating feelings, but that doesn't mean that they're not gonna do the chores, and doesn't mean that you're not washing the dishes either. So feelings are one thing, like, and actions are another. So you can validate all the feelings, but still keep your rules firm. So those are two different parts. Okay. The other thing is, so we always have to validate those everyday feelings, because validating these feelings will make the kids, this is part of being seen. Remember last time when I talked about seen, I said seen internally is about validation, and we're going to talk about it more when we talk about soothe, and that's the overlap. But soothe is more when there is distress, like higher level of, emotions. But validating everyday feeling with a word or two, with an action or two. When our kids fall, what do? It's like, oh, no, 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 yalla, yalla, nothing happened, yalla, no, no, you're good, you're good. That's not validation. You can just say, are you okay? Does it hurt? And I know some kids will make a big deal. If you know your kid is like that, just say a word of validation, then move on to distraction, especially with little ones. Okay? You can. There are tactics to use that. But denying feelings or dismissing them and disapproving of them is not the way to do it. Okay? And always, for kids to be seen and to feel validated, you have to be available, right? So parents who are always busy with their work or busy doing things, or the problem with that is is that if the kid does not feel you're present, right? Remember we said Dr. Daniel Siegel, when he talked about secure attachment, he said it is when you show up for your kids, when you're present, right? That's even in the definition, to be present physically, emotionally, and mentally. So they have to see your presence. You have to be there, and you have to have time for them. Otherwise, they will feel that they're not important. You don't care about them. And it's not true, but that's their perception, because you're not available. Okay, so be careful with the phones. I see now this whole cell phone thing is actually damaging families. It's damaging families. Total disconnect. Everyone's just on their phones or screens, and that's definitely not good. Okay, so that's when it comes to that. So, and again, I'm repeating here again that validation and soothing is not permissiveness. There's a distinction. When I talk about validation, when I talk about co-regulation, when I talk about soothing, I'm talking about feelings and needs. I'm not talking about actions. Okay. Permissiveness, on the other hand, is when when you let them cross boundaries or do things without consequences. And that's not right either. Because remember, S number 6 is to provide them with guidance. That's one of the needs as well. So you cannot. So permissiveness is not what I'm promoting. It's not what I'm saying. Okay. But it's validation. So as usual, as positive discipline puts it, kind and firm. You have to be firm on the boundaries, giving that those boundaries are realistic expectations and realistic boundaries and important boundaries, right? You're not overdoing it either. But again, if you set a rule, that's your rule. So you have to be firm about it, but you have to be kind. Okay, so you can still validate the feeling. You validate the feeling of a 2 years old who want the candy before dinner, but you're not giving the candy before dinner. Okay, they will still cry. They will still feel in pain. That's okay, but you validated. That's another area. That's another connection. Okay, it's like, I understand you want the chocolate. Yeah, mommy wants the chocolate too, but that's not the right time. But you're not giving the chocolate. Or I understand that chores are boring. Yeah, oh, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. I feel so bored too when I wash the dishes. Okay, but when it's time to do the chores, it's time to do the chores. We're not saying, oh yeah, validate the feelings and just let them go wild and not doing anything. That is totally wrong as well. Now, the second step is to build the child. Remember, we said number 1 is to co-regulate. We said 3 tactics for soothing or co-regulation to happen. Number 1 is to co-regulate with them, and we explained that these are the steps that we talked about. Listen, with attention and empathy. Number 2, do not interrupt. Number 3, you mirror, paraphrase, ask clarifying question. Number 4, name their feelings. Number 5, validate their feelings, right? And number 6 is to respond. This is not part of co-regulation, but it's definitely needed for them to learn how to regulate their actions. Anyways, the second part is we said model, and we talked about that. And this is number 3, is to build the child's self-soothing kit. Meaning, children, they need coping strategies. Like when I'm upset, when I'm feeling angry, or when I'm feeling dysregulated, what should I do? What can I do? And what we need to do is actually we need to help them develop strategies to calm themselves down, so that in addition to this co-regulation and this wiring of the brain, and in addition to seeing us as models, and that's another wiring of the brain, the third thing is to directly teach them how to do things and how to calm themselves. That's direct teaching, right? And kids vary. You will have kids who need very few things to calm themselves, but you have also kids who have strong temperament. And remember temperament traits, we said there are kids who are highly reactive. They're loud, they're reactive. When they're mad, they're so mad, and fight, flight, freeze. When they're sad, they're so sad. And you have kids who cannot control their temperament more than others, or cannot control their anger and frustration more than others. So at any level, you just develop the strategies based on your child's need. In all cases, it's good to give them a toolbox of strategies to use when they are dysregulated or when they are upset. Those are some of the tools that you can give your kids, like whether mental breaks, whether physical breaks. But let me tell you something first. Before I jump into this, kids who are always dysregulated, which is something that a lot of kids can fall into these categories, especially younger, but when they grow up, sometimes they get out of it, but sometimes they do have it. They continue having this dysregulation, and this is individual variation, right? Based on genetics, temperament, social life, and everything else. So the thing is, if you feel your kid needs that, you can sit and talk to them about strategies. You can explain to them about frustration and anger and emotional brain and rational brain, and let them sense their anger. When this happened, on a scale of 0 to 10, where were you? Where's your anger scale now? And let them be cognizant of their emotions, okay? I'm frustrated at 5, or I'm angry at 9, or I'm, upset at 3. Okay, teach them about. So that's one thing, is to consciously know about their own feelings and being able to grade it. Okay, that's one thing. The other thing is to work together, maybe sometimes to develop strategies and techniques. One of the suggestions, like different parenting schools have, is this place, especially for kids who are always have a state of distress, like whether you call it the calm cave, Dr. Daniel Siegel calls it, or whether you call it positive timeout, like positive discipline call it, or time in, like other conscious parenting call it. So that whatever the name, it's an area where you can put together, an area where when we are out of control or when we are distressed and we need to calm down, we can go to that area. You can name it names, like, calm oasis, or my calm area, or my whatever. Let the kid name it. An area that has stuff that can help him self-soothe. And you can always offer to join him in that area, okay? Especially for kids who are really have a problem with temperament, right? And anger and frustration. So that's an area you can read about it. You can just Google it and read about calm area or all these names that I mentioned. So create that area in the house. It can be in the kids' room or in another corner of the house, and you put some stuff in there that can be calming, right? Like what? You can put things like, stress balls or favorite blanket or toy, or it depends on the age, of course. Some kids, you can put some books that they like to read, or something that they can hear that soothes them, or there are so many things that you can put in this area, and this area can be used as a suggestion. Like when they get really emotional, you can just say, do you want to go to our for example, our oasis, or our like valley, or whatever they will call it. uh, so what are other strategies and techniques that you can teach the kids to basically self-soothe? So things like mental break. What is a mental break? Is to teach your kids to stop what they're doing. Sometimes you need, if you're so frustrated, you need a break from thinking about the problem. By the way, all these tactics are needed for adults who are the same, or sometimes occasionally feel the same. Sometimes we're so intense. It's good to take a mental break. And a mental break is to stop thinking about what's agitating you, what's upsetting you, and take a break, do something, kind of distract yourself. Maybe go color, go read something, read Quran, read a book, um, just play a game, do something to just give you a break from thinking about that. Okay. A physical break. They can take a physical break. Some kids can soothe through exercising or jumping or walking, or stretching or jumping ropes or stuff like that. Spiritual break, right? Like doing like salah or dhikr, or it depends on, of course, the age and what you taught the kids, right? um, um, other things like using sensory experiences, like something like listening to sounds like Quran, putting headphones, or some kids actually need to put earplugs to calm down. I mean, you have like the sensitive kids, they actually sometimes want something to dim the sound because it irritates them more. Others want to listen to something that's soothing, right? Maybe storytelling, maybe some kind of a calms them down, maybe like anything that's soothing. Touch, like what? Like taking a warm bath. A lot of people, by the way, warm bath works with them, right? Or uh, hugging their cat, or playing with their pet, or cuddling with their blanket, or stress ball or play-doh, whatever. Depends on the age. I'm just giving ideas. Then there are grounding techniques and mindful techniques of like deep breathing. Teach them breathing, like deep breathing, right? There are ways to teach, depends on the age, again, younger ones. And like, you can smell the flower and then blow the candle. Smell the flower is when you take the breath in, and then uh, what's it called? Blow the candle is when you expire or get the air out. So you can teach them to do that. You can teach them to say the names of 3 things that they see, or 3 textures that they feel. So there are a lot of even if you go online and search, you will find a lot of tools that you can use, and you have to see what will work for your son or your daughter. You might have 2, and each one has their own coping strategies, right? So try to provide that, and teach them to use it, because that will help them self-soothe. So later on, when I'm upset, I know, what, I'm going to go to an area and just sit with myself or read a book until I'm just calm down, or listen to something, or do a dhikr, or whatever it is that will calm me. Everyone has his own. But don't forget, one of the most important things is the social support. Social support is to ask for help. Teach your kids to ask for help when they need co-regulation, or when they need someone to help them calm down. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing shameful about needing help to calm down, because sometimes we make it sound like it's shameful that you're not able to control yourself or it's not able to self-soothe. Remember, this is a process, okay? So tell them, ask me, or sometimes talk to nana, grandma, or baba, or a friend if they're older that of course you approve of, right? So give them those opportunities and ideas on how to self-soothe or help them soothe themselves. And again, even though you're doing that, don't think that these tactics are going to work every single time, 100% of the time. It doesn't. Sometimes it will work, sometimes not. Sometimes, they will want you to still co-regulate or help co-regulate. Sometimes they will tell you, no, you can stay. I will just be by myself. So, but of course, younger ones, in addition, you probably will have to be with them. You can definitely ask, do you want me to join you? Because sometimes some kids, they need time and space when they're extremely mad, and you try to co-regulate. And sometimes they're stuck. Sometimes they don't want you. They don't want anyone. They're just in this status of total dysregulation, and you stay next to them. Don't bother them. Just tell them, okay, I understand you're mad now. I will give you some time to calm down, and I will wait for you. Okay? Don't tell them, oh, you go to your room and just you're so this and that. How dare you do that? Right? So just stay. You can do your stuff or something. You don't bother by keep talking. Don't talk to them if they're in this status, by the way. Some parents want to be nice, so they keep telling them, are you mad? Are you still mad? If they are at this level, sometimes you stay next to them. It's okay to be there because you don't want to leave them to be scared, especially like young, like 2-3 years old. But again, sometimes they don't want to talk. They don't want to engage into a conversation. Okay, so give them some time and space and be there with the first, for this age group, with the first opportunity to, like, if you feel the tone is coming down, you can like invite them back. But if you feel they're still there, leave them again, like just give them time and space again. Okay, so these are all tactics. So these are tactics to help them develop as well this self-soothing. So by using all these together with your co-regulation and together with modeling, okay, you can help the child regulate. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر